Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier, and thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it, and any feedback is appreciated as well. I presented yesterday at the Deloitte Kenya budget sort of analysis, and I've actually took Rufus along and we filmed it, so I'm going to post that in a little while because I got a chance to sort of look across the world, come back to Africa and look at Kenya in particular, and we're just editing it now. My macro thoughts around the price of crude oil, which notwithstanding traded slightly lower yesterday, it's really seen a price tremor, as General Wesley Clark characterized it this morning on the BBC, and I think it could gain intensity. My home thoughts, Herve Gogo is my friend now in Kinshasa, and the man who survived the Haiti earthquake by hiding under his desk tells me I've not spoken of Hannah lately. Well, Hannah is to be found in the early hours, it's the cold season in Nairobi, in our bed. And therefore we have this very early morning interaction which I enjoy, and we both listen to the BBC radio on our way, her to school and myself to work. She's become a very keen gardener and produced these extraordinary beetroots, which are a deep purple, and they made me think of James and the giant peach. One afternoon I found her giving my Aziz Mama is your mother's brother, a tour of the garden, and Aziz Mama responded with these fantastic avocados he's growing in his garden. And then I find myself reading Thomas Pynchon's Vineland, which is a most peculiar world. And I'll give you one quote: "Easy, they just let us forget, give us too much to process, fill up every minute, keep us distracted. It's what the tube is for. And though it kills me to say it, it's what rock and roll is becoming. Just another way to claim our attention, so that beautiful certainty we had starts to fade. And after a while they have us convinced all over again that we really are going to die, and they've got us going again. Apparently the center of our galaxy smells like raspberries and tastes like rum." And I thought that was a pleasant thought. And I took a photograph of a gorilla in the lounge in Kigali, and I thought it was pretty good, so I'll post that up as well. In Baghdad, apparently the fear index is the price of a bullet, and it has tripled. The cost of a bullet for an AK-47 assault rifle has tripled to 3,000 Iraqi dinars, or about $2. Kalashnikovs are almost impossible to buy from arms dealers, though pistols can still be obtained at 3 times the price of a week ago. Barack Obama says he is sending 275 troops to Iraq as discussions take place with Iran on the best way to halt the Islamist insurgents. And then in the Asia Times, I saw this quote: "If Barack Obama decides that a breakup of Iraq won't hurt vital US interests, the Iraqi Prime Minister's paranoid visions may become reality." And in that same article, this quote: "ISIS very much wants the US to re-enter Iraq so that it can meet its real enemy head on." The US Secretary of State John Kerry called the advance an existential threat for Iraq. Asked if the United States would cooperate with Tehran against the insurgents, Kerry told Yahoo News, "I wouldn't rule out anything that would be constructive. As for airstrikes, they're not the whole answer, but they may well be one of the options that are important," he said. "When you have people murdering, assassinating in these mass massacres, you have to stop that. And you do what you need to do if you need to try and stop it from the air or otherwise," he said. And obviously this is a further opening for Iran and the US, about which I wrote on the 28th of October 2013 when I spoke about Barack Obama, Hassan Rouhani and the rapprochement. The MH370 was lost on 8th March en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Seems quite a long time ago, isn't it? Apparently, the Chinese authorities have given the death penalty in Xinjiang for China Tiananmen crash. And I saw this photograph posted on the BBC, but a photograph taken by the AFP, where it shows Chinese state media showed several prisoners on trial on Monday for the Tiananmen crash. Made me think of Mao Tzu and Don DeLillo and how all of these things are mass spectacles. International markets, the IMF now sees the US's economy growing 2% this year, down from an April estimate of 2.8%, cut largely linked to the economy's contraction in the first quarter, when a harsh winter added to other factors such as a drawdown in inventories. Saying a rebound is underway, but it's providing only a partial offset to the weakness at the beginning of the year. Currency markets, the euro trades very resilient, 135.61, dollar index 80.52, couldn't break through the top side. Japanese yen 101.96, Swissy 0.8982, sterling back below 170 at 169.72, but traded above 170 for the first time in nearly 5 years on Monday. Aussie 0.9350, a little bit softer, dovish central bank. India rupee 60.335, and you will notice like the rupee, the South Korean won 10.2170, Real 223.50 have all come off recent highs and have been softening. Egyptian pound steady at 714.85, and the South African rand a little bit weaker at 10.7746. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index, and it could not push on through as we saw. Euro dollar, I'll put up a 3-month chart. You see we've bounced off those lows below 135, and it trades quite resilient given that we're in negative interest rate territory. Gold, unable to hold on to its gains, back at 1265.01, and I think that bearish price action, you see it go up and fade, is signaling to us that fundamentally the price bias is lower. Crude oil, I'll put up a 5-day chart, and I just say that I think this could spike really big at any moment. The contract lost 1% yesterday after ending last week at 106.91, which is the highest close for the front month since September 18th. But obviously events in Iraq remain fluid, and if ISIS are not stopped and they make further progress, then I think we're going to have a super spike in this price. South African all share up 9.743% this year, and back just a fraction of all-time highs. Dollar versus rand 10.7715. We've come off from the highs around 10.30 a little while back, but I think probably it's overdue a rebound from here. Egyptian pound 714.85. The Egyptian stock market fell 1.53% yesterday, but is up 25.656% so far this year, and is Africa's best performing stock market. Nigerian all shares up 0.29% this year, but had a strong rally of more than 11% since the middle of March. Ghana Stock Exchange up 9.976% this year, but obviously you've suffered negative returns because of the SEDI. Now coming to Kenya, where obviously we had the big news, I put up the link for the final term sheet for Kenya's Eurobonds. It really was an optimal outcome. They sold $500 million of 5-year notes at a coupon of 5.875%, which really is an outstanding result, and 1.5 billion at a coupon of 6.875%. And in my view, that was an optimal outcome. Katrina wrote that Kenya's debut 2 billion bond breaks Africa record, the largest debut for an African country in the sovereign bond market, which is an extraordinary outcome, bigger than even South Africa. Puts Africa on track to beat the record 11 billion it raised last year, after Zambia, Morocco and South Africa also issued bonds in recent months. Investors placed orders, and this is really telling, for more than 4 times the amount that Nairobi finally raised, suggesting stronger appetite for higher risk assets. Strong demand came in spite of a terror attack that killed 48 people in Kenya on Sunday night. I'll come to that in a moment. And it speaks to a bifurcation, doesn't it? Such a strong endorsement from the international markets yet. An incredible security situation, which I will deal with in a moment. I said to Katrina, Kenya has gotten really, really lucky with the yield. There's been a humongous rally, and there's very strong global demand for African sovereign paper. I said a rally in Egypt following elections that returned Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, combined with the intervention of the IMF fund in ailing Zambia, had turned around Kenya's prospects. Officials had initially been nervous that they had missed the most opportune window to turn to the international markets once the Federal Reserve began tapering its bond buying program, a move likely to send initial repayment rates higher than hoped. Basically, in the comparison to what one would have expected 4 to 6 weeks ago, Kenya is looking very attractive at these rates. Kenya should say a big thank you to Sisi because Egyptian yields are now pre-Mubarak levels, and Madame Lagarde, the head of the IMF, for bailing out or talking about bailing out Zambia, which triggered that big rally in Zambia and made us look much more attractive. Kenya's low yields and high investor interest reflect not only lucky timing, but also overall growing appetite for exposure to growth in some of the world's fastest growing frontier markets. Strong debut bond will boost Kenya's finance team. Kenya says it will use the money to repay a $600 million loan that expires in mid-August, as well as for general budgetary spending with a focus on grand infrastructure to boost growth rates. And then, of course, we're getting the resizing of our economy, 20.6% bigger, and that's going to help with the ratios, in particular, like debt to GDP. Government is saying Kenya could grow at 5.8% this year. I'm at sub 5. I've got a 4% handle. I am proud to say that on June 11th, talking to Javier Blas, I was pretty close to where I thought the oversubscription rate would come in the yield as well. So on the 9th of June, I wrote about this. I say you short a couple of mil. I was quoting Scarface, and when he's looking to take over from the boss, and the boss has been taken up by the scale of his ambition. And Tony Montana says, you short a couple of mil, I go on the street for you, make some moves, mill here, mill there, you got it. And in fact, they did. And on the 26th of May, I said, optimally, we needed $2 billion because of the net repayment, and obviously we got that. Now, turning to the other story, which is the Al-Shebaab. Islamist militants from Somalia have said they carried out an attack on the Kenyan coast that left at least 48 people dead, and warned tourists that the East African country was now officially a war zone, quote unquote. Gunmen reportedly went door to door in the coastal town of Mekotoni on Sunday, demanding to know if the men inside were Somali-speaking Muslims. Those who were not were shot dead. Among the victims were football fans who had been watching a World Cup match at a video hall. Others were dragged from their homes or some of the town's small hotels. A statement from Al-Shebaab on Monday said the latest attack, the deadliest since Westgate, was revenge for the Kenyan government's brutal oppression of Muslims in Kenya through coercion, intimidation, and extrajudicial killings of Muslim scholars. Condemned the Kenyan military's continued invasion and occupation of Muslim lands. To the tourists visiting Kenya, we say this: Kenya is now officially a war zone, and as such, any tourists visiting the country do so at their own peril. Statement added, foreigners with any regard for their safety and security should stay away from Kenya or suffer the bitter consequences of their folly. You have been forewarned. As dawn arose in Mekotoni on Monday, the Guardian saw at least 10 bodies lying in the streets and next to houses, almost all adult men. Most had been shot, but some had been hacked with knives or other sharp objects. Witnesses said the attackers, numbering more than 30, many wearing cloths to cover their faces, had stormed into town at about 8:30 p.m. on Sunday in 2 hijacked minibuses, meeting little resistance from security forces. Divided into groups, one of which attacked a police station while another attacked banks and business premises. At least 2 hotels and many vehicles were set on fire during a methodical assault that lasted all night. John Muweri, who lost 2 brothers in the attacks of the gunmen, spoke Somali and asked his brothers to recite verses from the Quran. Another survivor, Ann Githigi, said gunmen also spoke Swahili and asked her husband his religion. When he said he was a Christian, they just opened fire. They shot him 5 times in the head and the chest. At the Breezeview Hotel, the gunmen pulled the men aside and ordered the women to watch as they killed them, saying it was what Kenyan troops were doing to Somali men inside Somalia, a police commander told the AP. The attackers were so many and were all armed with guns. They entered the video hall where we were watching a World Cup match and shot indiscriminately at us. They targeted only men, but I was lucky. I escaped by hiding behind the door. Gitobi said he called a local police officer about the incident, but his phone went unanswered. A junior police officer later called him back, telling him that they also had been ambushed. One of the police officers told me they were under attack too and could not establish the number of the attackers. He said the officers would respond after they repulsed the gunmen, but then only came at around 7 a.m. to collect bodies lying around the town and surrounding villages. And then Olelenku said the attackers fled into the nearby wilds known as the Bony Forest after fierce exchange of fire with security forces. A search is underway. By the way, not one official has been sacked since Westgate, which is really extraordinary. After Sunday's attack, the American ambassador made Kenya's entire coastal region off limits for embassy employees. The statement from Al-Shebaab added, "We hereby warn the Kenyan government and its public that as long as you continue to invade our lands and oppress innocent Muslims, such attacks will continue, and the prospect of peace and stability in Kenya will be but a distant mirage. Do not ever dream of living peacefully in your lands while your forces kill the innocent in our lands." The FT, going back to the same article, saying the Al-Shebaab said they picked the town because it had been Muslim before being invaded and occupied by Christian settlers, and in fact it's where President Kenyatta, the current president's father, settled a lot of his kinspeople, and therefore it is a very fine, in all the noise there are very clear messages that the Al-Shebaab are sending. Kenyans are still smarting from the country's mishandling of the Westgate attack. Indeed they are. At one point, soldiers looted the mall they were supposed to protect. That's when, if your disciplined forces are doing that, it's very difficult to repair the faith of the public. Foreign diplomats have despaired at Kenya's lackluster, misguided and heavy-handed security response since Westgate. Boniface Mwangi, an activist, said, "I think Kenya government, have no idea how to govern or how to keep us safe, and so they always have to blame someone else." Western governments last month warned of a high risk of terror attack along parts of the coast and were roundly condemned for that, in point of fact. But the point is that if you have actionable intelligence and you go to someone like Olelenku, and Olelenku says, "No, don't worry, mate, it's all okay," whose word do you operate on? That is the problem, I think, here. And I think the government would do well to reach out and get all the support they possibly can, because they're clearly unable to deal with it right now. While the Westgate attack targeted expatriates and elite Kenyans, diplomats say the attack on Makatoni seized on an easy target. They saw a weakness, they took out the police station to stop any reaction. Their object was to terrorize. And then, of course, there's been a massive distraction with the government, pointing the finger at Raila Odinga, which really is a diversion, which is irresponsible at this moment in time, I think. Now, going back to the linguistics of the Al-Shebaab Twitter handle, which these are tweets earlier this morning. The unit terrorizing the coast could very well be a diversion decoy. Watch Olelenku dispatch all his resources to the coast, and another deadly unit attacks the interior. While you were sleeping, another 20 Kenyans, including uniformed officers, were killed in a fresh new attack just outside Makatoni. Apparently, this is a fact. Then they've got a photograph of a tusker and saying it's a constant reminder that God loves Kenya and loves to see Kenyans happy. Another tweet from sometime yesterday, Makatoni is in flames, Mombasa death squads, armed forces marauding in Eastleigh, Kasarani concentration camp, is Kenya a war zone? And the interesting thing is, that's obviously live curation. I just saw it, I caught up, Martin pointed it out to me. And it's something we witnessed during Westgate, and it's very 21st century messaging and effective. I'll take you back to that piece I wrote on the 30th of September, immediately after Westgate, where I said, I called it a BP moment. Kenya's share of voice was at a level never experienced before. The world's media was camped on our doorstep. I found myself watching the live feed, trawling eyewitness accounts, reading the Al-Shebaab Twitter handles. And Twitter knocked them down about 4 times. And I came to the conclusion during Westgate that they live tweeted from inside. And I think, I'm pretty sure about that, because the tweets were so quick to respond as I watched things happen. And it undermined the Interior Secretary's bona fides by these real-time rebuttals. And the latency of the responses leads me to place the author of those handles on the scene in Westgate for an as yet undetermined time. The second point to make about this entire thing is that the government have lost the communications battle. And it is this which is a debacle of monstrous proportions. And continuously, some of the responses where seeing it as a conspiracy are just avoiding the issue. I'll put up a photograph of Westgate. And then, apparently today, Islamist militants kill 8 more in new attack on the Kenyan coast. Red Cross coordinator for the coast, Hamisi, told Reuters that gunmen on Monday night attacked Poromoko area near Mekotoni, which lies on the coast between Mombasa and the Somali border in the north, killing at least 8 people. Al-Shebaab says our operations in Kenya will continue. I'll put up a photograph of Mombasa Island that I took on Boxing Day, and another one of Vipingo, which is halfway between Mombasa and Lamu and these parts. I wrote about this, that the dashboard is blinking amber. When you strip away surfaces, when you see into it, what's left is terror. This is the thing that literature was meant to cure, the epic poem, the bedtime story. And I was saying, we're being expected to suspend disbelief. And we've reached that Marx Brothers moment when, you look at someone like Olelenko and you say, who are we going to believe, you, Mr. Olelenko, or the evidence of our own eyes? Kenya shilling 87.794, tested 88 yesterday. Nairobi all share up 9.381% in 2014, but fell 3/4 of a percentage point yesterday. NSE 20 is down 2.821% and at 4-month lows. The government sold that Eurobond, so that's a big plus. Other than that, the markets, were a little soft yesterday, and that's entirely to have been expected given the events we saw. The commentaries there, Safaricom eased to 1280, that's sticky. I mean, it's up 18.433% this year, but at the bottom of its trading range. Kenya Airways, interestingly, is going higher. You wouldn't have thought it would, but it's so oversold. So I think that's Co-op sank 12.439%, but that's all around the bonus issue. They had a 1-for-6 bonus. Equity Bank was very firm yesterday, up just under 40% this year. Kenol Kobo was the most actively traded share, closed at 9. There's been heavy volume in the last 5-6 weeks that we've seen. Once again, thank you for stopping by. Thoroughly appreciate it. Stay safe. Thank you.